Okay, continue recording. Okay, so anyway, it might not be a really good um, recording, but anyway, we'll see it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Spain. So we've spoken about the program and the program conditions in other orientations. We've spoken about the importance of the school, obviously, that's your placement, and what you're going to be doing at the school. And we've spoken about the importance of the host family, which is very important. I should also mention to you, and I will send this in a message, that we do have one school which is offering residential accommodation, that's to say, an apartment. I believe there are two German volunteers who have already volunteered and say they would like to live in that shared apartment. We also have a boarding school, which is in the north of Spain. It's about 15 minutes outside of the city, beautiful city called Vitoria. It's a boarding school, mainly boys, mainly boys. They only come Monday to Friday. And so, it's quite a kind of independent setup. We will send two volunteers there. I already have one who said he would like to go. So if you'd like that experience of doing a boarding school, you're welcome. Okay. Let me know. You don't have to commit for the whole year. Okay. So if you wanted to do the boarding school from September until Christmas and then change to a family, or if you decide you like it, you can carry on there. Okay. It's in a beautiful part of the country. Absolutely beautiful. In the north of Spain, about 1 hour south from Bilbao, which means it's about 3 hours north from Madrid. 3 to 3.5. Excuse my voice. There's a lot of pollen, and the first thing that gets me with allergies is my voice. Okay, just a reminder about our orientation weekend. This should say September, of course. Yeah. So the orientation weekend, we would like you to be in Madrid on the morning of the 17th of September. On the morning of the 17th of September, sorry, on the morning of the 18th of September. So that means if you want to arrive one day before, that's absolutely fine. On the 18th, we have a very busy day where we have to, we've booked 16 beds at the Generator Hostel. Okay, so I will send you information about that. And then we have to talk about the course, we have to talk about the program, we have to talk about we have to do some more face-to-face orientation, but we also have to go to a police registry, which only takes about 1 hour for everybody. If we all go together, take about 1 hour, which is fine, but we have to walk there, take your passport and do that. We need to do that on the 18th of September, which is a Friday. um, and then enjoy Madrid a little bit. Okay. So the idea is actually we would get together, take a walk, have some lunch, go and see the police, and then have a little bit of time to chill out and for you to rest. If you want to come a day before, 2 days before, 3 days before, up to you. Absolutely no problem. Okay. But we won't be in Madrid until the 18th, the morning of the 18th. Okay, says here my internet connection is not very stable. Okay, on the 18th, on the 18th, I better check these dates. But anyway, on the Saturday, we will see Madrid. Okay, we will do some more workshops, and that is basically talking face to face about families. We want you to really think about the families and empathize with the families you're going to be staying with, and also the schools. I'll be asking you to show me that you know how to manage a group of students and things that we can do with them, which is great because we do have some more experienced volunteers. And then we'll also be talking about support and the importance of support, okay? To avoid any kind of situations where where communication breaks down. If you need help, you need to send a clear message to the right person. It might be me, it might be a friend, you know? So if you've arranged to meet somebody socially and you like that person and that person doesn't turn up, and you're very sad, this is in Spain, your first date in Spain and the person doesn't turn up, don't tell me, I can't help you. Okay. But I'm sure one of the other volunteers could help you and kind of say, well, don't worry, I'll come and we'll have a coffee and, or let's meet somewhere. I can't help you with that. However, if you lose your passport, tell me. Okay. If you need to use your health insurance, if you want to buy a ticket, you want to travel to another part of Spain, ask me. If you're having problems with the placement and you feel that you're not being used effectively, your time is not being used in a good manner, ask me. Okay. So it's who to ask, and if you're missing your family or you're missing your dog, hey, get on FaceTime, call your mum and say, can I see little Toto or whatever your dog is called? Okay. I can't help you with that either, I'm afraid. Maybe one of the neighbors has got a dog and you can go and walk it. Okay. So the importance of support. Okay. And it's really important to share challenges and to share problems, because if they are shared, they are halved. And if they are shared, other people who may be experiencing the same problems or challenges will feel that they're not alone. But anyway, that's what's so important to talk about support. Okay. And then we'll talk about all sorts of other things. And then on the 19th, which is the Sunday, I hope, on the 19th of September, you will travel to your placement. Okay. Now, this weekend, the 2 nights, so we've booked you 2 nights in the Generator Hostel. If you are a VIA volunteer from Germany, this is covered by your organization. Okay, so you get your meals and you get your meals, plus you get the accommodation and your travel from Madrid onto the placement. For the rest of you, I will send you, there's a price for this, an additional fee. I will send it to you. I think it's important to attend. Okay, I think it's important to attend. Anyway, let's continue. So that's looking forward to September. Remember last time I spoke to you about Go Live Learn, which is a way for you to practice Spanish. So Go Live Learn is an association which handles some of the NVW affairs in Spain. It's a non-for-profit association. And so we have volunteers here from Spain who would love to practice once a week or twice a week with you. So they will teach you some basic Spanish and you will give them maybe half an hour of English conversation. Okay. So they will teach you basic Spanish. That also means that when you get here, there will be a person of reference. Okay. There'll be a person who you already know. So we're going to set that up next week. Okay. I just needed to sort something out. It's a free service for our volunteers incoming. Okay. There'll also be a WhatsApp group for everybody. Okay. So things you have to think about at the moment before you come, which you're going to have to start thinking about now if you are applying for a visa, which should be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. You should have all the documentation you need. I'll be sending that on, where you will be needing, remember to have your passport. If you're from Germany, just your ID card. Remember, you'll have to get insurance to cover you. Not from Germany, you are covered. I will need your flight details. No rush. You will need a police record check from your home country. You do need that, okay? So you start applying for that now. And that is particularly if you have to apply for a visa, you should start looking at how you can get the police record check. Remember, we do need you to have signed the terms and conditions. You will need a doctor's certificate. There's something called an international doctor's certificate. Your dear family letter, which most of you have written to me, just a letter of introduction about yourself is very important. And then your profile, the profile we are creating your profile. Okay. So that's important document. So we go. Spain, how well would you fit in Spain? You're going to have to answer in the chat box. In the chat box. Question number one. Question number one. Which of these stereotypes are true about Spanish people? Okay. Okay. Is it A? It should say B. Don't know why it doesn't say that. Anyway, A, they're very lazy and work very little. Two, they're extremely outgoing and love to party. And most Spanish people are friendly and have a warm personality. Which ones are true? A, B, or C, please? In the chat box. What do you think? Is it A, B, or C? C, C, B, C, C. Yeah, I think it's somewhere between B and C. Absolutely. Um, Not all, I mean, most Spanish people are friendly. Number one, that is the most important thing. Okay, that's the most important thing. What about number two? So, you will not be left alone in Spain. So, if you were Spanish, would you rather A, eat less for lunch and have a bigger meal for dinner? Eat the same amount of food for lunch and dinner, or have bigger meals at lunch and less for dinner? See, this is lunch, midday, dinner, the evening meal. A, B, or C? What do you think? Hannah says C. Emma says C. Alexandra says A. Norma says C. A. Okay, A. A. It is actually C. So this is something you're going to have to get used to. The big meal is midday, and the small meal is the evening meal. In most families, the midday meal is about 2 o'clock, and it's a three-course meal. There's your starter, which might be, for example, a plate of pasta. And then second, it might be a steak or some chicken. And third, a piece of fruit or something like that. Desserts are very simple in Spain. In the evening, it might be another three-course meal, some soup, maybe some croquetas or a salad, and then another piece of fruit. It's really important, and you know that in Spain, people eat much later. So in families, they eat about 2 o'clock or even 3 o'clock. And at school probably an hour earlier. But in fact, the evening meal is likely to be 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Okay, or even later on weekends. So you will need to align yourself and synchronize yourself to this timetable, which is very, very important. Okay. Really, really important that you do that. You cannot say, well, no, I'm eating. You can't say, oh, I'm eating at 12 at midday, noon, and you guys eat at 3 o'clock. In a Spanish family, this would not happen. Okay. They'd be extremely offended. Okay. 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 Number three, you meet a friend on the way to school and you have to give them two kisses. How would you kiss them? On the left cheek, on the right cheek, or it doesn't really matter? A, B, or C? A, B, or C? Yeah, probably on the right cheek first, then on the left cheek. Okay. Right cheek and then left cheek. Okay. Um, if you were, if you meet a man these days, you know, don't feel obliged unless you see it's a really natural exchange and people are doing this. If you feel threatened by this, don't do it. Okay? We got this great thing since the pandemic, the fist bump, which is absolutely fine. Okay? In social situations, it might even just be better to say, "Hi, nice to meet you," not handshakes or anything like that. Okay? You will learn, you will see it can be uncomfortable, especially in family situations where they are all giving themselves huge hugs and pats on the back and they're holding the shoulder and arm around somebody. Wow, it's difficult. Okay, this your personal space is your personal space. Need to go with the flow, need to go with the flow up to the point that you feel comfortable. Okay, there we go. You're, you trip, you fall in front of a big group of people and you hit your head on the floor and you get up and you know what? People laugh. Okay. Unfortunately, what would you say? A, B, or C? Estoy embarazada. Qué miedo. Or qué vergüenza. What would you say? A, B, or C? Qué vergüenza. Kiara, Hannah, both say C. Norma says C. Ruby says C. Yeah, okay, so it's C. Absolutely. Oh, Kevin Wentham, what a fool I've made of myself. Okay. How embarrassing. Remember, embarazada would be embarazada is not embarrassed. Okay, so we have these words in English which sound like words in Spanish, but they don't mean the same thing. So embarazada means pregnant. Okay, not embarrassed, right? So if you fall over and you say, "Estoy embarazada," they will call an ambulance. You need to see a doctor. Make sure you're absolutely fine. Okay. It's like constipado. Constipado. In English, constipation is when you have problems going to the toilet. But constipado in Spanish is when you have a cold. Okay, so a little bit different. These are what we call false friends. Okay, false friends, which are words in English which are different in other languages, although they look very similar. Okay, there we go. You're going to cook a typical Spanish dish for your friends. What would you prepare? Fajitas, tacos, or tortilla? Fajitas, tacos, or tortilla? Okay, all you good people, of course, a tortilla española, okay, which is the most typical, possibly the most popular dish in Spain, one of the easiest to make, just potatoes, eggs, and some olive oil and a pinch of salt, okay? Everybody loves it. Fajitas and tacos are only Mexican food, okay? So when you come to Madrid, and you find somewhere to eat. Mexican food is not Spanish food. And all Spanish people will tell you this. Okay. Okay. Here's some of the things which people in Spain worry about. So I can't hear you. I'm just going to do this direct. Things which Spanish people worry about. And they do. Money. Okay. They never talk about it. Um, they never talk about saving money. They never talk about how much money they have, but they do worry about it. And now there's a cost of living crisis. This means that families, remember, when you're living with the family is not being paid anything. And, so it's a voluntary arrangement. Okay. They're doing it because the school is asking you to come and work as a volunteer. So they do worry about money, but they won't tell you they worry about money. It's really important. You should never have to pay any money to the family unless it's a social event and they say, we're going to the cinema, would you like to come? They should, and you should just ask, how much does this cost? Okay. And they might say, it's going to cost 10 euros. Or they might say, don't worry, come with us, we're going to buy a family ticket or something like that. Okay. So just courtesy, ask. Don't offer money for household things. You can offer money if you're going out socially. And be careful if they ever ask you to some big social event and maybe you didn't know you were expected to pay, because some Spanish people, they go out in a very big group and they have dinner and do all sorts of great things. And at the end, how much was that? Okay, it's 50 euros each. And you go, wow, 50 euros, I could have gone for a weekend in Barcelona. Okay, so yeah, be sensitive about that. Home, they worry about their homes. Spanish homes, we've said this, most of them look like nobody's living there. They are so tidy. They are so tidy. And they spend time doing what we in England would consider to be a complete cleanup, like every day. Right? So they're really, really clean. So if they're asking you to keep your area or the bathroom clean, it's not like they're asking you to clean the home. It's like they're asking you to do what they do. Okay. Education, of course, they worry about education. Health, luckily, Spanish people are very healthy generally. Okay. Work, yeah, because work, as you know, in Spain, the salaries are not very high, but people get by. Their image, yeah, you will notice this, that Spanish people like to dress as well as they can. You will notice at some of the schools, you say, wow, these teachers, that they look like they're going to a job interview or they look like they're going to a wedding sometimes. Okay. So the image thing is really important for them. And we have to align. And by align, I mean, when you go into the school, you need to look and think, you know, is what I'm wearing, the way I look, is it challenging? Okay. So if it was one of the Catholic schools, which we've spoken about, don't go in with your tattoos and your piercing and stuff and your blue hair. Don't do that because they would be offended. But I wouldn't, if I knew you had that sort of image, I wouldn't assign you to that sort of school. Whereas we have schools which are called a Montessori school. Montessori school is normally for small children and it's a more experimental way of learning. So it's less formal, less academic. Now, Montessori, yeah, we did have a blue-haired Australian volunteer with lots of tattoos, and she dressed like kind of wow, you know, sort of anime or Dragon Ball or something like this. They loved her, absolutely brilliant because it was all very visual. So there's somewhere for everybody. But let us know, and it is important then just to make sure that you bring, a pair of trousers which are reasonably smart and either, a sort of polo shirt, tennis shirt, or a blouse or something, or a sweater, something you feel comfortable in, which is generally kind of neutral and would not challenge the school. Okay. But only a couple of our schools actually ask that you wear a uniform. That uniform is just blue trousers and a light blue tennis shirt or polo shirt. Okay. So you can bring that yourself. If you're assigned to that school, I will let you know. Okay? But you are going to school, no suit, boots ever, nothing like that. You won't need any formal clothes. Okay. All right. Food. Oh my God. I can't tell you the importance of food. We've spoken about it before, but people live to eat. You understand? They don't eat to live. It's not, I'm going to get something quick and I'm off. The Mediterranean diet is this concept which is recognized by UNESCO, by the United Nations, as something which is, is part of World Heritage, Mediterranean diet. And people say, yes, olive oil, fish, legumes, fresh fruit and vegetables. So everybody goes and buys fresh fruit and vegetables. In Spain, people don't like processed food to cook at home. And therefore, this Mediterranean diet is the ingredients, but it is also the importance of food in their lives. So to spend an hour together preparing a meal is seen to be a very positive thing. To sit at the table together and to spend time talking at the table and after the meal is also seen as an important thing. So family meals on a weekend, if the family are getting together, can go on for hours and hours. Now that's all part of the Mediterranean diet, okay? And it is the most important thing in Spanish culture, to be honest. All right. So that's something you really have to fit in with and you have to adapt your rhythm there. Okay. So there's just a list of the five meals which Spanish people generally have. Depends on the area of Spain. Timetables might change. But we've got our desayuno, which is breakfast. It's very, very short. I know I was reading some profiles and people saying, yeah, in the morning I make myself some bacon and scrambled eggs before I go off to work. And I come, they don't have that kind of breakfast. It's something like the small, like a muffin, a yogurt, and a cup of coffee, and they're off. Okay, very, very quick. Breakfast people don't sit around the table, and they can be quite chaotic. Then they have this thing called almuerzo, which is about 10:30. About 10:30, which could be it could be a piece of cake, it could be another muffin or a piece of fruit and a cup of coffee. In some places it's very big, it's enormous, the almuerzo. Okay, depends on the part of Spain. And people actually leave work and go to a restaurant at this time of the morning. Right. We then have the comida, which is the main, that is lunch, normally from between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. I don't think you'd find anybody eating much after 4, but it is the most important of all meal times. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So we've spoken about that. The merienda, which is normally for kids, which is just maybe a donut and a fruit juice or something like this to keep the kids going in the afternoon. Typically, when they come out of school, mum or the grandmum is there with the donut and the sort of little carton of fruit juice, and they kind of eat that, drink that, and then go off to play or go off to do their homework. And then the cena, which is the evening meal, which can be from 8:30 till 10. Okay, you will find it difficult to fit in at the beginning, but do it. And the reason you want to do it is because this is making your day longer and it is giving you this long afternoon, which is when you go out and meet people and do things and go to the gym and give private tuition, join a choir and stuff like that. Okay? Don't worry about timetables in Spain. Learn to enjoy them, especially that lateness. Okay? That lateness. The other thing about food, and there's a whole list of do's and don'ts, but I think there's just a couple of things. Okay? Okay? So I've got to tell you this, and remember, please, absolutely red line. Don't buy your own food at home. Okay. And don't, say, well, I really need tofu because there's no tofu, and I'm a vegetarian. Um, don't go out and buy it. Explain to the family and they will buy it for you. Okay. Or, exceptionally, they might say, well, we don't eat that and we don't even know where to buy it. But if you find it and you want to buy it, fine. That would be very exceptional. But don't think that you can go out and buy food and bring it into the family home and store it in a particular place, unless it's literally for dietary needs because some medical condition. So very important, please. They would be terribly offended. The other thing, don't say, "Oh, I'm not hungry." Midday, you come home, 2:30, all the cooking's going on, and you say, "Well, I'm not really hungry." Don't worry. You said, "Don't worry. I'll have something later." That doesn't exist in a Spanish family. Meal times are meal times. Okay? Don't say, don't arrive at meal times. Oh, don't worry, I've already had something with my friends out. Well, if that was the case, you should have explained to the family before. They'd be terribly offended. Okay. Um, don't say, don't eat at the family home. I should say, don't eat out of the family home without telling them. Don't say your country's food is better. Don't say your country's food is better. They won't believe you. They won't possibly believe you. In fact, they'll say to you, this is better than your country, isn't it? And you just say, well, yes, it's very nice. Another time, maybe start to tell them the good things that you have in your country, things that you like to eat. I love German food, for example. Love the food in Germany and Poland. Okay. And don't keep some food to eat later on. Okay. So don't take something from the table and then, so I'm going to take this to my room. They will not appreciate this. It doesn't happen. And they're constantly telling, they're constantly telling their kids not to do this, not to use their phone at the table as well. So those are kind of taboo things. All right. So you eat when you eat, and that's a Spanish mindset. This goes back to maybe 60 years ago. No, maybe 60, even more. 70 years ago, when Spain was a relatively poor country. It had had a civil war, and then there was the World War II. So there was about 10 years when Spain was really, really impoverished. So the grandparents of the kids you're going to be looking after, the parents of the host families you're with, some of them have really gone through very hard times. Okay. And this is why food became such an obsession in Spain. Okay. So we have to respect that. All right. Good. And Spanish food is pretty good. Here's some of the things you can eat. There's our muffin, which is called a magdalena. There's our tortilla de patata, which is the most popular dish in Spain. There's the croquetas, which is another one. Okay, the churros, the rabas, which are calamare. Okay, I'm not sure if you can really see them too well. And then we've got a lot of stuff which are like typical stews. So things like fabada, which is a bean stew from the north of Spain, the
Yes.
cocido, which is a garbanzo bean or um, chickpea stew, right? These things have a very peculiar flavor, and they're really popular amongst Spanish people. It's not like, yeah, I mean, yeah. So you will definitely be offered these things if you are coming to Valencia. You will definitely have a paella, which is also very, very good. So it depends. There's a lot of different kind of regional variations. But you see, none of this food looks like a wonderful presentation. All right. So one of our volunteers a couple of years ago turned up with a book which was a present for the family. And the book was called Food Porn. I said, what, really? I don't think this is not appropriate. And she showed me the book, and it wasn't it wasn't porn. It was actually it was photographs of food, but really nicely taken photographs. Okay, really beautifully taken photographs of beautifully prepared dishes. So one of them was like a hamburger with beautiful with the cheese dripping, and another was like a toasted sandwich, and another one was a melon which had been beautifully carved, um, a salad with a very fresh green look of the lettuce leaves and so on. That is like the title of the book, Food Porn, made it completely inappropriate in Spain. And the second thing in Spain, people look at it and say, "Well, that's a hamburger. That's a sandwich. That's not how we see food in Spain." Okay, so think about it. Anyway, I tell you one thing. I bet you never ever go to McDonald's or Burger King or KFC or anything like that. I know this. You never eat kebabs. You never ever do these things. But um, um, volunteers sometimes say to me when we get together and we're going to do a trip to Barcelona, something like that. I said, well, so we're going to go eat something really typical. And sometimes I say, hey, listen, we would just like to go and hang out and have a burger, have a pizza. We love Spanish food, but you don't have to love it when you're not with Spanish people, okay? So it's absolutely fine. You want to get together and decompress and look for comfort food in your snacks and everything. That's why we get together. And when you get together with other volunteers, go and do whatever you like, okay? Right then. So a lot of different dishes. Spain, let me just tell you, it's a 10-minute explanation of Spain and what it is today. And it is important because one of the most important things is that Spain as a country, um, there are regional differences, but these have become like political differences sometimes. So it's quite important that we understand how Spanish people see themselves. And to do that, we need a very brief history of Spain. So Spain had been visited and had colonies from people as far as the Phoenicians in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Celts from Ireland who came down. Even Vikings visited Spain. But really, the first important Spanish invasion or colonization was by the Romans. Okay. And the Romans came here, all right, and they set up Spain. This was in 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, and they set up three provinces. And you will see if we look very closely, we've got some of the Roman names, we can still see them. So Valentia, which is now Valencia, Dertosa, which is now Tortosa, um, Segovia, which is the same, Salmantica, which is Salamanca, okay, Cordoba, which is Cordoba, so Malacca, which is Malaga. So these towns still exist, and they brought things like engineering. They wanted the gold and they wanted the silver. That's why they came. When they mined that all, they left. Okay, then they left. Okay, after the Romans, there was a bit of a kind of vacuum, and it was the Moors from the north of Africa, the Arabic people. The Arabic people moved from the Saudi area, the peninsula. They moved west, okay, and conquered Morocco and Tunisia, which had Berber tribes, and converted them to Islam. And the name which is given to. Okay, so that got cut off just as I was speaking. All right. Okay. So it was the Moors who came in and occupied almost all of Spain. Okay. that occupied almost all of Spain, and they brought with them agriculture, medicine, science, architecture, and engineering. Okay, so particularly in the south of Spain, there's a massive Moorish and Islamic influence, right? Um, Really, really important. They were expelled after 750 years, 760 years, they left. And the Moors went to, they went back down south to Morocco, but there's still Moorish influence. And the Spanish people themselves today do not admit this, okay? They say that the Spanish culture has overridden the Moorish culture, but you just have to look a little bit. So you go anywhere in Spain, and the irrigation systems which allow for agriculture in this very dry country are all based on the ancient Moorish, Arabic irrigation systems. Okay. Later on, there was this kind of Spanish empire. So Spain united after the Moors left and then conquered much of America, the Philippines, Cuba. That was really about it, okay, and some parts of North Africa. And they became very rich with gold and silver. And so some of the very big palaces and churches that you will see here in Spain were built using the gold and the silver. So particularly in the 16th and 17th century. Okay. And then there was a decline. There was a decline because the money had run out. Spain ended up, it was invaded by Napoleon from France in the 19th century, and there was a war of independence, which is commemorated because the French were quite brutal, okay, as they moved through Spain. And you can see some celebrations of this, commemorating this in certain things in Spain. Okay. All right. Then in the 20th century, there was a civil war which was extremely cruel and extremely violent. And so the civil war went on just for 3 years. The fascists won, and then they set up a dictatorship. The dictatorship finished 50 years ago. But some people still think that the fascist dictatorship wasn't a bad thing because there was law and order. However, young people who think, oh, that was much better, need to remember at that time, there was national service, military service. Everybody had, all the men had to go. At that time, women were not allowed to work outside the home without their husband's permission. Women were not allowed to drive a car. Women couldn't buy property without a husband's permission. So when young people today say, oh, it was great when this dictator was around, really don't believe that. That's complete rubbish. Okay. And now we have a new constitution. And what we do have, we look at the map of Spain, and what we have is 17 different autonomous regions. Okay. So they are almost like states in the United States, or even in Australia. Okay. So some laws regarding education, regarding culture, regarding environmental issues, they might be slightly different in each one. National laws like, the age of consent, how old you have to be before you can drink alcohol, which is 18 everywhere. That's the same everywhere. Those are state laws, but individual laws. But this also means, because there's 17 different autonomous regions, there are 17 different school systems. They're slightly different. Okay, which means that the vacations in one place might be different from the vacations in another place. All right. So people love showing their regional identity. Okay, you will learn about this, and they're very proud. Some are more historical, some are less historical, but yeah, people do love to show their regional allegiance. Okay. Spain today, things which are important, really important. Bono Cultural, which means that every 18-year-old is given 400 euros to spend on culture. What do they spend it on? They go to festivals and they buy video games. That's it. Okay. Or Spotify, pay for their Spotify. So anyway, everybody gets 400 euros. And most adults say, well, that's a waste of money because that money would be better spent on their education. Right. Anyway, gender 100% protected by law, complete equality, gender diverse or fluid people are completely, all their rights are protected. If you decide you want to switch gender, you can do that legally now in Spain. Okay, there's a minimum wage. Minimum wage is about 1,250 euros per month. 1,250 per month. Spain is member of NATO, which is the military alliance between Europe and the United States. We have a Guardia Civil. We have 4 different police forces. So we have the Guardia Civil for borders, the National Police for kind of murders and things like that. You have a local police, which are things like traffic infringements, and a regional police who nobody really knows what they do, but sometimes they take the place of the Guardia Civil. Guardia Civil is like paramilitary, so they carry big guns and stuff, okay? You'll see them, you'll see the police around, okay? Spain's the 3rd most popular tourist destination, which means it's easy to travel. Very easy to travel, okay? 40% of Spanish people go to university. That number is falling because they've seen that even if they go to university, it does not guarantee the best jobs. Okay, there are more trained lawyers in Spain than the rest of Europe. Okay, so many people have got law degrees in Spain, and yet they end up doing like office jobs, okay, for the local council because there's not enough spaces, not enough demand for lawyers. Okay, free healthcare, absolutely universal. Everything is free. Hospitals are really modern, up to date, really, really, really good service. Okay, human rights, Spain absolutely protects minorities, diversity, everything, and there is an emergent immigrant population. And this is causing rising tensions. If you're from Germany, you will know because this is happening all over Europe, okay? Because of the amount of immigration. So these are important things to keep in mind. And racism has become better. Racism used to be based on ignorance of other races or other ethnicities. However, it's developing into a kind of anti-immigration feeling at times. I mean, none of our volunteers ever complain about racism, and we have plenty of people from Zimbabwe, people of all shapes, colors, and sizes, okay? And we're very proud of all our volunteers, whatever their background. Gypsies, there's a large gypsy community here. Again, there's just ignorance and like people thinking, well, they don't want to be part of society and they're lazy and they spend their time dancing and partying and stuff. Well, listen, the gypsy people are Europeans and they have their culture. All right. And if you're lucky enough to get to know them, they will explain their culture. They do live, they've got their own vibe. Okay. All right then. So that's important. And a nice thing now is that the schools are having to face up to racism because their classes are becoming more diverse. So you see different colored faces, different backgrounds in your classes, which is very nice. And actually they respond very well to our volunteers who are also coming in from other countries. So it's a very positive thing, right? So you've got to be careful with racism. Sexism Yeah, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, they used to be. You do have to be careful. I know everybody on this call is female, I believe. So you need to gauge if you feel that you are the victim or target of any kind of sexist attitudes. Um, I'd say most of the sexism you'd see would be the mansplaining. Okay, the guy kind of get well after you've said what you want to say. A guy pops up and said, "No, what you really mean is this, that, and the other." But they're probably saying it because you're not Spanish rather than because you're a woman. It happens to me all the time. Okay, with my brothers-in-law. I can't say anything without them then explaining to everybody else what I really meant, even though I didn't really mean it. Okay. However, sexism has reared its ugly head now amongst the younger generation. You know the dangers of social media, of images being shared. You got to be really careful. Don't share your social media accounts with any of your students ever. Okay. Keep that completely separate. It's about you finding um, your comfort zone. Okay, you've got to sort that out. Um, Gay pride is a big thing in Spain. Okay, I think it's next week or something in Madrid. It's massive, and the kind of cis community, people who are straight, sometimes feel threatened by that. Oh my God, look at what they're doing. It's the gay parade, the love parade, which they have in Madrid. It's disgusting because look at those guys and look at the way they're dressed. Okay. It is absolutely it's absolutely normal now to see people of the same gender holding hands, going out together, living together. Marriage, same-sex marriage is permitted now in Spain, so no problems there. Okay. Right. And we also have again, as females, this is really important. Solo sí is sí, which means only yes is yes. Okay. Now, this is now a law in Spain to stop sexual harassment. And that means that this kind of blurred line of whether any kind of relations are consensual or not is not a blurred line. It must be proven that it is yes, that consent. Okay. So this is to protect people. However, um, violence of any kind is a risk anywhere in the world, anywhere where there's people. Spain's a very safe country. However, the number one risk factor for any kind of violence, including sexual violence, is alcohol. So you need to be really, really careful. It's not like people have got to spike your drink. They don't have to do that because drink is so plentiful in Spain and so cheap and so strong sometimes. You ask for a gin and tonic in Germany. Actually, no, German cocktails are really strong. Ask for gin and tonic in England, and they put the smallest amount of gin and some ice cubes, and then the rest is tonic. Ask one in Spain, they will start pouring the gin, and you have to say stop. Leave some room for the tonic. All right, so it's really like that. So this idea of if you don't drink and you don't want to drink, that's fine. If you don't drink and you want to experiment and drink alcohol, do it, but do it with your friends when your friends are there and it's a situation where you feel comfortable. Okay? And don't overdo it. The big clubs and raves and stuff. There are these kind of predatory, this. I'm not what I'm talking about. It's the same all over the place. Okay? But it's in law. Only yes is yes. Okay? Meeting people. You will meet people. They're normally friendly. It's normally casual and informal. Careful with that personal space, all right? I've got a friend who does this every time. He will stand so close to me, even from the first time we met, and he taps me on the chest, and he taps me on the chest when he's trying to make, with the back of his hand, when he's trying to make a point, okay? And as he does this to me, I like move back. I moved back to the point where I might be at a bar having a drink or having a coffee. By the time he's finished doing this, I'm out on the street because he's just pushing me back. And for him, it's completely normal to be doing this to somebody. Okay. So that touching is to the extent that you feel comfortable. Somebody grabs your arm or, you know, okay. Listening. Spanish are not great listeners. They like to talk. No problem in Spain if you cut somebody off in the middle of a sentence and finish the sentence for them. And it's very difficult. You have to just get used to that. Okay. WhatsApp is king. WhatsApp groups is queen. Okay. Let's say WhatsApp is so important. So important. That's how everybody communicates these days. Okay. Meetup, I've heard this app called Meetup, which means that people of similar interests and hobbies, you register and say, in my area, I want to play hockey. You'll find people who are playing hockey. Or you like people who like, I don't know, martial arts. You'll find people, or who like hiking. Okay, good. And then sports teams and clubs, Escuela Municipal. Well, Escuela Municipal is like evening courses organized by the local council. So different ways of meeting people. But actually in Spain, it's very easy to meet people and you will be introduced to many people. Okay. Okay, and that's it. We will talk about things about documents and so on in our next meeting, next meeting will be 11th of June, only for Germans, please. It's something about your program. That's it for Germans. And then it will be in June again. Once I've sent out the papers you will need for the visas. All right. So that will be specifically to talk about visas, which that meeting will not be for the Germans. Okay. And then we will have further contact at the end of July. So we had like 3 days, 1 week. I'll try and make it a user-friendly timetable so that we can get together at a reasonable time. Okay, so I'm guessing it's going to be later in the evening, which is summer in Germany when you're on vacation. All right, and early in the morning in Australia and in New Zealand. Okay, if you've got any questions, please write them down. I can't see them. I can't hear you. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.